to another episode of Podulution. I'm Timothy Stone Dancer Coleman, Director of Education for BronxNet and co-host for Podulution. I am here with our creator and co-host, Mr. Benaiah Warr. How are you, Benaiah?
I'm blessed, man. How you doing, Timothy?
Oh, listen, you know how we do it day by day.
Day by day, got to.
You can only take it one day at a time.
Yes,
Right?
for
So,
sure.
this is a show where we celebrate leaders, mentors, and heroes. And, sometimes we find ourselves in communities because you and I both work here in the Bronx, even though we could work in any community in New York City. We're here in the
Yeah.
Bronx specifically. And in all these different pockets of communities, sometimes we run into situations where we see people going full throttle ahead, but with no real direction.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about how do we create and go about creating, that community of leadership, a space for leadership where you can have multiple touch points with people and kind of bring all these people who believe in all these different things together to move in a similar direction. What do you think about that?
Wow. Thank you for that. Great question, as always, giving great questions. I think to build a community of leadership, you have to have a good leader. And I think it starts with, first, what is the leader's passion?
Mm-hmm.
What is the leader's vision? What is the leader's character? I think the environment, I think the community takes on the quality of their leader. And so I think for all of us, we have to take a look at who's leading, right? Take a look at the characters of those that are in the forefront, those who are supposed to be the visionaries, the people who are supposed to protect us, the people who's supposed to give us insight and wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when we can start having leaders with integrity, when we start to have leaders that lead not with their own motives, but lead for the betterment of the environment, the betterment of people's well-being, I think we can start to see gradual changes. I think we'll start to see how people treat each other, right? Because it's a ripple effect. It's
That's
a
right.
domino effect, and so and some people might have a problem with leadership, right? Because you have all different types of people in the world, all types of individuals born and raised from different places, different experiences. They go through different things. And some people might have like based off of their experience, they might have some trepidation with that. And so I think, people have to first change their lenses of what leadership is.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because I was going to ask, so just to break in there for a second, I was going to ask you, the characteristics of leadership. I think one of the most important ones is having a heart for service.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what you just described is somebody who has the best intentions of their community at heart.
Yeah. And makes you feel safe.
And makes you feel safe. Yes.
Right.
Now, do you feel like leaders are born, or do you feel like people can learn to be leaders, or both?
I think everybody's a leader in their own right.
Okay.
Because, right, like, think about it. We lead ourselves without thinking, like, every day, and like just the mundane and what we do. Everybody in some way leads, and you don't know that you do. You don't know that you inspire. You don't know, because we're human beings. That's what we do. That's how we connect. That's how we engage. And so I think it's important to know that you carry something important in you. And I think that's the value that everybody brings to the world, no matter who you are, right? That in some way you are a leader. And if leadership can be corrupted, right? Like if you are a person that only thinks this way, you have this idea, you have this belief, and you go about it this way in the world, it can affect people around you. And so you have to be careful that you have things that are in you that can uh, can be impactful in a
Yes.
negative way and in a positive way.
Yes. Yes. And
Mhm.
it's what you said about, everybody comes from a different set of experiences.
Yeah,
So I think when we come back from break,
yeah.
let's talk about, even a great leader can be walking with trauma,
Wow, yeah. Ah, that's good. That's
right?
good.
All right, folks. So thanks for staying with us for Podulution. We will be right back after these messages.
We have more mentors, leaders, and heroes coming up after this. Welcome to Podulution, a show that celebrates mentors, leaders, and heroes.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for coming back to Podulution. Benaiah and I really love doing this show. We thank you all for, the emails, the phone calls, the letters that you send to the station here at BronxNet. We're having a great time having these conversations. And our goal is really that we create more conversations in your home and in your life and in the different environments and circles that you run in, where you can speak about leadership, where you can speak about your community heroes and uplift those who are doing great things in your community. Right before the break, we were chatting about some of the characteristics of leadership. And, one of the things that I think is something that we don't really talk about a lot in society is that even great leaders are walking with trauma because
Mm,
they're still human beings. Right. And I'm not talking about leaders who are only there for the title. I'm talking about natural born leaders. Like, these are people with a heart of service. And even if they try and hide in the back of the classroom, they're still pulled to the front because leadership is so in them. Their purpose of service is so in them. But we also have to make space for people's trauma. And I think leaders also have to take a moment to evaluate how they're approaching other people. And they always say hurt people hurt other people,
mm,
right? But sometimes we don't know that we're hurt. Sometimes
mm.
we haven't dealt with that. Sometimes we haven't had a moment to sit and reflect, or haven't taken a moment to sit and reflect on where we are as human beings. So I wanted to know, like, how do you feel about yourself as a leader in your community? And for the things that have been traumatizing in your life, COVID, it's not necessarily like family related. Like, we get trauma from a lot of different things. Living in
Yes,
the Bronx, listening to all these sirens every day. You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? That's traumatizing. You know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? So how do you personally deal with your trauma as a leader in your specific community?
That's a loaded question, and I love it, Tim. I love it. I love conversations like these, and I'm so thankful to share on that. I think first is me understanding that I'm broken, right? And I think that we can all attest to this as human beings, right? we're broken individuals and we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect.
That's right.
And so we all come into this world with flaws, with proclivities, with things about us that we don't even like about ourselves. And
That's right.
we come into this world, fragmented. So, I just think like how I look at it is first I have to deal with me, right? And if I'm okay with me, and if I'm comfortable with me, and if I'm fine with me, I know that I'm okay and that
Hmm.
I know I will have a proper assessment of not only others but also the world. And so one thing that's a major thing and a major topic in our society today is the struggle and the tension of mental health.
Oh,
And everybody goes through that. I think that is something I never thought I would have to struggle or face. But yes, around the time where COVID happened, that was was something that was a aspect of my life that I had to deal with. And so I know for me, that is something that I constantly have to make sure that my habits are good. How am I treating others? How am I treating myself? What am I not putting in place or disciplines to help me be a healthy person, a healthy individual?
yes.
Then we can get to the leading part, right? Some people want to lead before they're even good within themselves, and they wind up leading but bleeding on people.
Oh my goodness. That's good. Yes.
So what happens is you never get to that space of yes being a broken individual, but yet being a broken individual that is walking in healing. And so what happens is if you're not a person that is walking in healing and you decide to stay in a broken space, you're going to break other people
Yes.
and
Yes.
you're not
Yes.
going to handle them well. And so I think all of us before we can start to, and how I approach it before I start leading others and before I start trying to put demands on people, before I even start to try to, the greatest leader and the greatest leading is by example.
That's right.
And if I can just be the best example and the best version of myself,
Yeah.
the rest will reveal itself along the way.
That's absolutely true. I mean, we in especially in the BIPOC community, Black and Indigenous people of color, I think there's such a stigma around mental health that, in previous years or decades,
Hmm.
as we read and study about past times, anytime someone says previously mental health, we would immediately say, oh, you're talking about somebody who's crazy.
Hmm.
Right. And so
Yeah,
for us to sit down and how times have changed where we need to sit down and really think about our mental health and how we are. And I love what you said before, how we treat ourselves.
yeah.
Right. Because sometimes let me give an example. Like anytime I run into somebody who is really like overly sassy or disrespectful or says kind of crazy outside of their face kind of stuff, they're
Hmm.
doing that because they've gotten away with it so much. Like they're
Yeah,
comfortable
yeah.
showing that side of
It's
themselves.
become a trait now. No longer,
Absolutely.
it's not a phase. It's a personality
That's it.
disorder.
That's it exactly. And it's become like a full-fledged trait,
Yeah,
character trait.
yeah.
And I always have to think about, wow, this person just doesn't have enough people around them to put that back in check, because that behavior doesn't make me want to willingly serve whatever your real need is. It's like,
Hmm.
why are you approaching me from that perspective?
Yeah.
And so we have to leave space to understand one another. And my father always said, you can't control how people act, you can only control your response.
Wow.
um, which I know multiple people have said throughout time. That is, it becomes difficult when you are the only one trying to control, or you are the only one who is trying to control a situation, but the other person is still giving you all these negative inputs.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're trying to control your responses over and over and over and over again. And it's like, okay, Lord, like this person is about to get clapped on. Like, what is like that's enough.
Right. Right.
Right. And
Right.
so we have to, through service and through the heart of service and through love and with mercy, approach situations with people and have real conversations about how their approach to us makes us feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I would say, leaders, oh God, you said it, leaders who bleed onto other people. That's crazy.
Listen, and I've seen it. I've seen it happen in front of me. I've seen it happen in church. I've seen it happen in, places that I've been to, and you see people who you go to public spaces and you see how their character and their flaws, if not properly channeled, can be uh a space where it can cause destruction. And so
Yes.
when we come back after break, I kind of want us to talk a little bit more about that when we close and tie everything in, more about how, if we're not careful to um work on these areas,
Mm-hmm.
how it can cause even greater damage to others and other people in our environment. So we'll be right back after these messages. We have more mentors, leaders, and heroes coming up after this. Welcome to Podulution, a show that celebrates mentors, leaders, and heroes. Welcome everybody back to Podulution. I'm here with my host, Timothy Stone Dancer Coleman, and we're just talking about how leadership is so important in the environment in the grand scheme of things. And we are happy to have this show which celebrates leaders, mentors, and heroes. And it's just so important. And so Tim, let's talk a little bit about how, if we're not careful to heal,
Mm-hmm.
how that can cause destruction. But also, let's not just keep it there. Let's double down on it. How can we go from hurt to healed?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, thank you for that prompt, because that's it's really important first to have a moment that we create in our day, and it's going to be different for everybody,
Yeah.
where we can reflect
Yeah.
on where we are. It may start off as you only got 30 seconds, right? Because it you have to put it into practice.
Yeah.
Right? You can read 100,000 books and have 100,000 degrees, but until you get out in the world and start putting that knowledge to practice, it's not going to grow. It's not going to expand. You are not going to uh, be chiseled and kind of like recreated into where your full path and purpose are supposed to lead you.
Yeah.
So, in terms of getting to that point of healing, we have to be able to have a moment of reflection. And I don't know if those moments are natural or if we need to pick up a book on how to reflect on our day.
Mm, that's
Like
good.
there's different ways that people are going to get to what I'm talking about, but there has to be that moment of reflection where we say, okay, I am going to be honest with myself. I did this right today. I did this right today, but I didn't do this right today.
Yeah,
That one exchange, I think I left a bad seed in someone's heart. I'm going to need to go back and talk to them tomorrow and say, I'm not apologizing for telling you that XYZ needed to be adjusted, but I didn't mean to use that tone. I wasn't trying to dig into your soul when I said XYZ.
yeah,
I'm merely saying this,
yeah.
right? Like I think society does not naturally lead us in a direction where we are where it is innate to us
Mm-hmm.
to go back and clean up bad seeds,
Right, right.
right? And so to get from hurt to healing, we also have to think about the bad seeds that are still sitting within us that someone else may have planted, whether it was on purpose or by accident.
Yeah.
And we got to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
We have to come to terms with it and let it go and
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, if I'm not going to repeat this to someone else and do this to the next person, I'm going to have to come to terms with I'm never going to get an apology from so and so. And I'm
Yeah,
going to have to be okay with that.
yeah.
I'm never going to get an opportunity to come back to such and such a conversation because maybe now we've waited too long to even bring the conversation back up. It's not even worth it at this
Right,
point. They've moved
right,
on, right?
right,
You the
right.
only one losing sleep over it. So why don't you just let it go,
Right, let it
right?
go.
So
Like
I think
Frozen.
frozen in time, right? We get frozen in time about stuff that other people aren't even thinking about
Yeah,
because we didn't address it in the right amount of time in the right spirit,
yeah, yeah.
right? So I think for me, coming into higher and higher leadership, I had trauma from previous leaders who were either jealous of my skill sets and saw me as a threat to their position, or who were put off by my approach because they didn't want to move as fast as what I
Yeah.
naturally want to move. Um, but then I had to say, okay, am I moving too fast?
And first off, I'm glad that you didn't let those experiences stop you from being a leader that doesn't do the same thing or repeats the same cycle to others. Because
Right.
in my experience of you leading me, you don't give me those you don't give me a person who allows their traumas and allows what they're experiencing to influence how you know uh, uh, may give me advice or may give me insight on things. You are a person that you can tell that you've learned from your experiences. You've had lessons. You learn different techniques and skills, and you put that all together, and you've worked on yourself.
Yeah,
So that way, when you're leading somebody, that it doesn't come off in a way in which you're projecting,
I
but you're
love it.
doing it in a way in which it can kind of help edify, right?
I appreciate that.
And it's well
But
deserved.
it's intentional,
Yeah,
right? Like because we all sit back and we're like, ooh, when I get to such and such a place,
right.
I'm not
Oh
gonna do
yeah,
this to so and so, and
I've
I'll
done
never have this, and I'm never gonna right.
it.
But when you get into those other situations and you are squeezed,
Yeah,
then you have to then still be whole enough in yourself
yeah,
to not respond the way that your previous bosses responded that gave you that initial trauma.
yeah.
Like with you, I think I have reversed a lot of the things that were done to me or said to me. I have reversed it as much as possible to create a space for you to not only be able to grow naturally, but to be able to grow holistically,
Wow, that's
right?
good.
Because you already have all of these different types of skill sets. And I knew, and we had this conversation before. I knew right away, like my role is to mentor and get out of the way. I want this brother to shine. I don't need his credit. I am not afraid of his gifts and his talents. I am going to do everything I can to pour into this person See, that's another thing leaders need to understand.
Wow.
You have to intentionally pour into someone, and
Yeah.
that's not manipulative or
Yeah.
manipulating a
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
That is service. I am
Yeah.
in service to you. That's why I always feel like, even back when I was an executive director previously, uh I felt like I was the number one servant of the organization,
Mm.
because it's all the other people that have you're doing marketing, you're doing finance, you're doing grant writing, you're doing, how can I serve you so that we can reach this goal?
Yeah.
Not how do I pound your mind and heart and crush your soul so
Right.
that we reach the goal.
Right. Right. Right.
Right. So I
Listen, I think you breathed on people wisdom, and I think they needed that today, and I needed that, and I think that's important for us to know and how to better the environment with leadership, right? By bettering ourselves. And so I think this was a perfect way to end it. This was a great conversation, brother.
thank you.
And
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm just so excited to always, have these conversations and talks with you. So I'm gonna let you wrap it up, and I'm gonna let you do your thing, man.
Amen. Listen, no, this has been phenomenal. It's always great for us to have these moments and to record them and share them with the world, right? So that people can get
Yeah,
what they're gonna get. And if they
yeah,
miss something, hopefully they rewind it and catch it on the flip side,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, folks, thank you so much for joining us again today on Podulution, where we celebrate mentors, leaders, and heroes. If you've got a mentor, a leader, a hero in your community, shoot us an email at education@bronxnet.org. Let us know about that person. Maybe it's someone we can invite on the show and highlight them for what they're doing in your local community. We appreciate you. And as always, you have everything you need to bring your unique story to the world. Check out bronxnet.org/education. Take some classes with us. Some of them are in person, some of them are online. And work towards bringing your vision to the world. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Yes. Peace.